We may have to do a little sign language between us. Uh, we use the webinar version of Zoom because we get so many people on these, and a meeting would just be chaotic. So down at the bottom of your screen, if you hover your mouse down a little, there's a chat box, which it looks like most of you um, have found. And to the left of that is Q&A. If you would put your specific questions in Q&A, then Dick and I will stop each other and ask those. Chat, let's keep it for the chat and the networking, because you're going to learn from each other on this. But welcome to SCORE Orlando. My colleague tonight is Dick Meyer. We both come from a long restaurant background. In fact, it'd be too embarrassing to tell you the collective number of years between us, but I was restaurant marketing. Dick was, his claim to fame is operations, but he was involved all the way from site selection all the way through operations and closing restaurants when had to be. Most of you are familiar with SCORE. We're a nonprofit. We've got 7 facilities, chapters right here in our district. There's about 300 across the country, and we've got about 12,000 people that we can reach out to. So if there's a question that we don't think that we can handle, we'll go into that database and find you someone. SCORE's mission is very simple. We want to foster small business communities through 2 things: mentoring, that's one-on-one, and education. And our vision is to support every person so that they have what's needed to thrive as a small business owner. So we've all had our success in businesses, and we're just here to support you. Great timing there, Dick. Let's go to the next one. So the 3 things that we do, kind of redundant to the last one, we do mentoring. You can go to your local chapter, to the website, find a mentor, and hover down just a little and you'll find mentoring requests. Complete that and it'll go into the respective office and they'll get a mentor assigned to you to help you. We also do a lot of workshops. SCORE Orlando will probably do about 300 in this calendar year. And we share a lot within our district so that we can bring as much to entrepreneurs as we can. And then our websites are full of online resources. There are all kinds of templates, assessments. There's online webinars there that you can take, but just a lot of information. Want to move on, Dick? We call this our SCORE roadmap. These are the main steps that you're going to be going through as you're starting your business. You're going to be taking classes entitled Starting Your Business. Dick and another one of our restaurant experts, they teach this class in Orlando, and it's a great job. They do a great job. And we have other folks in other districts teaching Starting Your Business as well. Your marketing plan is extremely important, and marketing is not what I like best, just the research and the advertising piece, but it's all the way back to the beginning, the positioning, the branding. So it's a very important part of getting your plan pulled together. At this point, you should be starting to talk to, we call it a mod, the mentor on duty, to get you a mentor selected. Then take the business plan class if you haven't already, and we'll be talking about that coming up in a little bit. And the part that every entrepreneur hates is the financial plan. Don't like to deal with those numbers, but that's what will make you successful or will help you fail. And then how to get funding. We'll talk about that just a little. You can view any of our seminars at our websites. Go to your respective, such as Orlando is orlando.score.org, same for Jacksonville. So we're very easy to find. And what is the cost for this mentoring service? It's free. You know, folks asked me when I retired if I was going to do consulting. I had a lot of offers to come in and do projects, and could have probably made quite a bit of money. But I had been successful in business. I was ready to slow down, and I found SCORE. So folks like Dick and I, we're volunteers. Well, this is our give back to the community. We feel like the community is what made us successful, and we want to give back to it. So mentoring's free, and for now, our webinars are free as well. A screenshot of our website where you can find a mentor, register for a workshop, and find the tools and templates. So it's very simply laid out. So if you can't find it, just call one of the offices and we'll help you. Next. So where do you start? Oh my gracious, there is so much to do. So the things that we're going to be covering tonight, we're going to talk about self-assessments, business plan, legal, licensing, funding, operations, and marketing. So you're going to feel like you're drinking from a water hose here. The first question is, are you cut out? Do you have the makeup to be an entrepreneur? It's very much a risk-taking proposition. And I tried to find you a link and say, just take this self-assessment. And there are so many good ones on Google. Just Google entrepreneur self-assessment. The background of this chart is one that I've seen many times. It just goes through the various aspects of running a business, and then you rate yourself on high to low. End of the day, the ones that are most critical are what we call these intangibles. These are the ones that will be the make it or break it. All right, do you have the ability to work long and hard? The food industry is tough. Just ask any of us boomers who did our business in food industry. Most of us have artificial hips, knees, ankles. I mean, it's a very, very tough industry. And then I'm sure quite a few of you have been in the industry and you know what I'm talking about. Do you have the ability to work with and manage others? Are you a leader? You have to be a leader in your business. Can you deal with failure? You will learn more from a failure than you'll ever learn from a success. So maybe your first 15 tries didn't work and number 16 is a home run. Can you deal with that? Do you manage your own stress very well? Stress will eat you alive if you don't find ways to manage this. Do you have the ability to work alone? Are you self-driven? Do you need someone to say, okay, Mr. Meyer, welcome to your job today. Here are 10 things I need you to do today. That's not the life of an entrepreneur. You're the one who's making that list. And working with your team is so important. And in the early days, these are folks that you have, and what we used to call a Rolodex. That sounds like a very outdated term, but your contact list of folks that you can get a hold of very quickly when you need something, okay? Success is wonderful. And those of us that have experienced it, we know the top of this iceberg is the sweet spot. That is where we all want to be. But I tell you, look at all these attributes under that iceberg and how large that is. This is a great graphic for explaining this. The hard work, the persistence, the late nights, the disciplines, rejections, all of these things listed here are things you're going to be dealing with. But the two keys to be successful as an entrepreneur are good habits. You've got to have good work habits, from time management, working with people, all of that plays in, but you've got to have the passion. One of the industries that I work a lot in addition to food, is childcare. And I love working with these folks because they love their kiddos. They don't know squat about how to run a business. We can teach them that. We can't teach passion. You either love it or you don't. So bottom line to success is experience and hustle. Hustle is driven from passion. If you love what you're doing, it doesn't seem like work. And I hope you all have had that experience in your lifetime. Once you find that the one thing that is absolutely right for you, it doesn't seem like work. You've got to have some experience. Are you going into a food truck with no food background? Dick will be talking to you a lot about that. Are you detailed in business planning? So many folks come in and they want to just go by the seat of their pants. Some people succeed with that. The highly successful people have a plan. Here at SCORE, we believe in a written plan. Doesn't have to be formal unless you're going for funding with an institution, but you should have a diagram of your business, where you're going, what your goals are. So the big takeaway, the bottom, it's more than just about food. You may be the best cook in the world, but do you handle these other things, access to capital? Do you have the money to get this started? So I really like this slide. Our folks in Jacksonville did part of this presentation. Small business owners do it all, own it all. They do both. They own it all. You are the person, you are that CEO down in that right-hand corner. Isn't that a great thing? A lot of folks say, I never want to work for the man again. Kudos to you, but you know what the CEO stands for? It's the Chief Everything Officer. I tell folks when we're teaching Food Service Live, when you're the CEO of your brick and mortar restaurant and your toilets stop up on a Saturday night and you're at capacity and you can't get a plumber in, you glove it up and you go and you fix it yourself. So whatever it takes. So to the diagram on the left, your sales and marketing, your product and service, your administration, because you all of these connect and you are the owner. Very important to remember. Next. So common failures, lack of planning, and this comes from mobilecuisine.com. Lack of planning. These are the same thing in any business. Doing everything yourself. You're going to have support. Not developing a budget. This goes back to what I was talking about, that entrepreneurs hate to deal with the numbers. You have to have a budget, to have a roadmap for where you're going. Terrible customer service. You will turn people off so quickly with bad customer service, as well as having no to little marketing strategy. And I'll come back after Dick does the heavy lifting and talk about marketing. Not enough funding. What people will do is they borrow or have family a lot of times contribute to just enough to get started, but they don't have enough to do their operating through their early days. And lack of passion. If you're not passionate about what you're doing, don't waste your time and don't waste your money. And this is doubly true in the food industry because it is such a tough industry. So I think we're ready to switch to Dick to talk about the business plan. And a question came up and said, how do I get the link? You click in that. And then we've got a tech person on the background who will come in and give you permission for that. So just keep checking it. So Dick, you want to talk about the business plan?
Okay, good evening, everyone. Like Lois said, my name is Dick Meyer, and my background is the restaurant industry for a long time. And so I'm gonna, when Lois and I were putting this together, we took some of what the Jacksonville chapter, who's got some great people up there. If you're from Jacksonville, you have really strong people to work with up there for your food truck or trailer. But we were kind of combining them. So there's a lot of material. And so we're gonna go through, you'll get a taste of it. anything you're not sure of, I really recommend you go back to that slide that Lois had talked about on when to get a mentor involved. Don't get all the way down the road and then call somebody and say, I need some help. I had a lady call me today. She wants to do a bagel restaurant shop, and she's right in the early stages. So we set a plan out and did it by steps. So it's a shorter process than going backwards on it. But one of the things that we believe is a fundamental building block of this process is to do a good business plan. You've got to plan and know where you're going. Committing a business plan to paper. You know, you've heard it. I'm sure a lot of y'all have worked with companies, and when you had to do goal setting, stuff like that. If you have a goal or a business plan or whatever, you don't put it down to paper, you really don't have one. You have an idea. And a lot about doing a business plan is doing what's called a SWOT analysis. And that's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal. So as you look at your competitors, you can do a SWOT analysis on them. What are their strengths? What are their opportunities or weaknesses that you can build on? The opportunities are what you want to capture. So strengths you want to maintain, weaknesses you want to build on, opportunities you want to capture, and threats you want to try to avoid if possible. So you want to do a SWOT analysis, but what a business plan will do is it provides the blueprint of how you plan to succeed. It gives you the guardrails. Now, it's very fluid. Once you start, things will change, but a lot of times in putting the business plan together, and you go, maybe we'll do this, and you go, no, we'll do this. You've already thought of plan B in the deal. You thought of your options, but you narrowed it down. So when you have to pivot a little, it's usually something you've already thought about. It sets sales and profit targets, so you know where you're going. I said I would be doing this in sales. The rest of my profit and loss, my labor, my supplies, my controllables are all geared on these sales. Do I need to cut back? Am I beating sales? Do I need to order more? So you got to know where you in the restaurant business, whether it's a food truck, whether it's a brick and mortar, it's a game. It's a margin of pennies. It's not, we're not building Teslas here with a big overhead. It's pennies. It gives you focus in that plan to stay on. And for you all that will be needing financing, it is mandatory. You cannot go into a bank or a private investor and without a business plan say, can you lend me some money? So let's look at it backwards. Fire, aim, ready instead of ready, aim, fire. Do the work going in. The slide of the lower shoes of the iceberg is really true. So much of the startup work is done before you ever open the door in the preparedness.
Dick, we're getting significant feedback again tonight.
I apologize. Let me sit back a little bit from it, but I have a new computer. I will not go into the brand, but it's really causing me some problems. Business plan templates, I'm a big believer in it. SCORE has one. Again, there was a slide of a screenshot of our cover page where you went into resources. And so that's the link for it. The reason I like SCORE's template is I work with people and they started out and I couldn't get people to do a business plan. And I figured out it's not because they're lazy, it's because they don't know what goes in a business plan. This link, this template will take you through step by step in every category, what goes in that category, and examples of how you can phrase things and put things in the category. There's another one on here. It's not about food trucks, but if you have access, public library, universities, the SCORE office in Orlando has got it. There's a software program called Business Plan Pro, and it's got 500 business plans in it. And so they've got a food truck, I'm pretty sure. you can go in and search that, and it'll show you business plans. You don't want to copy somebody else's business plan, but it gives you a great format and it gives you graphs. You'll see a very successful one done. You can use kind of as a one to kind of format for yourself. Business plan answers 6 questions. We're going to go into these really pretty quick. It's who, the description of the skills of the person involved. The lady I worked with today on the bagel has never worked in a bagel shop in her life. The first advice I gave her was go get a job in a bagel shop. Find out if you even like it. So they're going to want to know the description of the people that are involved. And usually if it's a food truck, it's 1 or 2 people. If it's a restaurant, it could be more principals that are involved in it. What? The description of your business, where the location. This is a little bit different. In Lois, we went to a little bit about where you can put these in the marketing deal. But food trucks or trailers are usually mobile, not always. A new thing popping up is food trailer parks. So then you've got more of a permanent location. But if a bank is going to lend you money, or if you want to be successful, it's got to be where you've got how you're going to do, where are you going to be? You just can't decide, okay, this is my first day, prep a bunch of food and drive around looking for somewhere to park your trailer or your truck. You've got to have that planned out. When are you scheduled to begin? Are you buying one? Are you building one? You've got to get inspections and all of that. So when are you scheduled? And especially if you're looking at a bank and lending money, you want to kind of make sure you've got money coming in time if you're building or buying one. A detailed description of how your business will operate, who's responsible for doing what and when. And why? Why will you, this is important, why will you succeed where other companies offering the same, another food truck or trailer, have failed? So what we try to drive is to get you to that point of differentiation. Why your truck instead of somebody else's? We also, as you remember that chart that had the different classes, I highly recommend you take the business plan seminar. It's a 3-hour seminar to help you focus on getting everything set up. Market research. What I tell my clients is in the business plan, there are 2 critical parts to the business plan. One is marketing, one is financial. In the first part of the marketing, that's you doing the demographic study. That's you really understanding who's my client, where my customer, my guest, whatever you want to call it. Remember, we do this for all different industries. But who is my client? Where are my customer? Where's my customer? And that who the customer is that's really a very detailed description of who you're selling to. But where are you going to get all this data? And how do you find it? Today's a lot easier than going to in the old days, you were going to publications and all of that. You can go to public libraries. There is a business desk. There usually is a business librarian there to help you. As Lois sometimes referred to, there's Google, who's the smartest person in the room. There are some links there to foodtruckoperator.com and foodtruckempire.com. Trade associations are a great tool. If you get into the restaurant business, you've got food trucks in there, you should join the restaurant association. They will keep you updated and they can give you a wealth of knowledge on things you need to know. The Chamber of Commerce, different government organizations, both at the, we say government organizations, don't forget state, city, and county. Because really for us, it's more of a city and a county type deal. The Census Bureau or census data for your demographic study will tell you in your market, populations, income, all kinds of information. Network through, again, for you all, I'm guessing a lot of the people on this call have worked in the restaurant industry. So go to the people you know, talk to them. Your competition. I recommend anybody that's going to do a truck or a trailer, go to a truck rally, go to a food truck rally, and get a Coke and have a pad of paper and sit down and bring a friend if you can, depending on how many trucks, sit down at one of the benches and then start writing down how many people are going to which truck, who's the most popular truck. Get a copy of all of their menus. So what are they serving? What's the price point? So talk to the operators. Food truck operators love to talk about their business. Last week, I went and met with one guy, and we ended up talking 3 hours about his business and gave me just a ton of information of what he had gone through. And then different employees. And then you've got your food networks. Example, Great Food Truck and Race are 2 of the programs. Your local public library, research and sources, and take scores back to that chart. You take starting your new business, marketing your business. The marketing plan is the plan for your business plan. So that's a great one to take. And again, all of those are 3-hour courses. You've got to be prepared. Simply driving out, parking your truck somewhere is a terrible way to start a business. Kind of from Food Truck Nation, you get a little bit of comparison from a brick and mortar to either a truck or a trailer. Normally, your startup capital way less, 300,000 and up for a restaurant, brick and mortar. Mobile, 30,000 and up. Yes, there are the food trucks out there that are $200,000 that are unbelievably sharp looking and well prepared, but you don't need to spend that kind of money. When I met with a guy last week, one of the things to consider that he brought up, if you're just starting in and you're really not sure that you're going to do this, he said, you can lease a food truck for a month or 3 months or 6 months. Lease the truck and you've got everything put together and everything that you want to do. You need commissary space. It's a little bit easier to do, a little bit more work than just lease a truck and go out and you got to be licensed and everything. But you're not buying one. You're not going in full board. If you really like it, then you can buy it. My recommendation is, depending on the capital that you have, that you buy if you don't have a lot of capital, buy used. Another, and I think it's later in here again, deal. You've got to make the decision between a food trailer and a food truck. Think about a trailer, it's a little bit more mobile than a truck. You've got your F-150 pickup truck and you're pulling around. If your food truck, if the engine breaks the morning that you prepped all day, the day before, you're ready to, that morning you're ready to go to your commissary, pick up the food or whatever and go, and your truck won't start or your truck's broken. What do you do with all the food that just prepped instead of going and just renting a truck from U-Haul, just a pickup truck and driving away? So the people I've talked to, I started out first talking about maybe just trucks. And then a lot of people have thrown out a lot of advantages for trailers. And you can custom a trailer that you pull as much as you can a truck. Flexibility, obviously a brick and mortar is not flexible. A truck is, or a trailer. Social media, it's important on a brick and mortar. It's essential with a mobile, because you've got to let people know where you're going to be today. As I go by a brick and mortar restaurant, if it was there yesterday, if it didn't burn down, it's still there today. But if you're a food truck where you're here on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, how do your people reach you? And that's where the social media is critical. Regulatory licensing, it's important, it's essential that in every city or county that you're doing business in, what is required for you to do business in that county. Think about it as it's a license, but it's also a tax. And that's why most of them have their own deal. So if you're in Orange County, but you're going to do an event in Seminole County, what's required? You have to know that. Every county and city, what they require, how much they charge for it is slightly different. So you have to know that or research it. Parking requirements, if you're doing a brick and mortar, it's critical. You don't have parking for Saturday night, you're out of business. In mobile, you have to know how many food trucks can be. What are the zoning requirements by the city or county you're doing business in? Again, if it's a food truck park, not an issue. If it's a food truck rally, they've already done that work for you. But if you want to be on the out parcel of a big office building, you kind of cut a deal. But there's another food truck there. Is there availability to have two by the zoning laws? You have to know that. Commissary, obviously with the brick and mortar, you don't need one. With a food truck or trailer, may be required more than, I'm telling you, 90% of it be mandatory that you have a commercial commissary. Now, some there are, if you know people in the business, there's some mom and pop restaurants that'll let you prep out of their kitchen. You pay a small amount, they rent you space, but you've got to have one that's under a health license. You can't, excuse me. In other words, you can't do this out of your home kitchen and have a health permit. And then seasonality in your launching time. Again, in a restaurant like in Florida, if you really want to open a restaurant in the middle of September, one of the slowest months of the year, and then not do the business, do you want to open one in Daytona the week of the Daytona 500 and get your lunch handed to you? So you got to think about things like that. More in Florida, worse up north, I think, in the winter, but in Florida, you got to think about weather and other events. Again, you don't want to open a food truck going into, and get in Daytona, open a food truck if this is your first shot at it going into the Daytona 500, because you have no data to how much am I going to sell, how well is it going to go. Your second or third year, yeah, you may want to take on the Daytona 500. But what is the weather? If you prepped everything, the gentleman I met with, he talked about he's on some weather channel that he pays money for to let him know, you've got the radar when the storm is coming, just so he knows if we're the rain tomorrow, that kind of deal. Because if he preps all this food and it's a downpour, what does he do with the food? So things to consider on the difference between a brick and mortar and mobile. And again, I highly recommend you take the marketing part of the deal. Funding. If you're going to have to get funding, and we'll go to where you go in a minute. So things you got to look at personally for yourself. What is your financial position? How much money are you going to be able to put in to this venture? Nobody's going to lend you 100% of the money. So if you need 100,000 at the very least, 100,000 startup with your reserve fund to make sure until you keep running until you break even and make money. You're gonna, at the very least, you're gonna have to come up with 30%, what's called skin in the game. Nobody's gonna give you 100% of the money. What is your personal credit score? Again, they're not, even though you'll have a business, you'll probably have an S Corp or an LLC as a legal entity. You'll take out the loan in the legal entity's name. The fact is they're lending you the money. They're not letting you are the business. So they're gonna look at your personal credit and your tax returns and everything to decide whether to lend you the money, not the business. How much cash or liquid resources do you have to draw down on, both to put in your down payment or your part of the deal, as well as live on if this is going to be your full-time job. Now, a lot of times people with food trucks kind of dip their toe in the water. They keep their daytime jobs and then they do food trucks on the weekends, so they get it up and going and they've kind of worked it out. Others have a spouse that is still working full-time and that can carry the part of the load until the truck starts making money. So, what's your cash or liquid resources, and how much do you need to borrow? You determine that by all of your startup costs, which is every dime you spend until the day you start business, plus your reserve fund The reserve fund is the money you lose every month until you finally break even. And you determine that off of your sales predictions, your profit and loss, and your cash sheet, which is all part of your financial, the financial part of your business plan. Funding, some things to think about. Determine how much you need, your business plan. That's the financial section. Sources of funding, your funds. Surprisingly, a large amount of businesses in Florida, both restaurants and other businesses, are funded by their people's own funds or friends and family. Then you've got private investors and you have loans. You have traditional bank loans or SBA. I have to be honest with you, in the restaurant industry, those are tough to come by. Not impossible, but not easy also. You have micro lending. I'm not as huge a fan on micro lending because the interest rate tends to be much higher than a bank or an SBA. I look at a micro loan as a bridge loan. It's meant to get me from point A to point B. So maybe I've got a bridge loan to start, a micro loan to start. While I'm in for regular funding, I get the funding, I pay off the micro loan. And third, I absolutely do not recommend, which is credit card for starting on your credit card. A credit card for monthly expenses, yes. A credit card for helping fund your business, no. Because the interest rate on that credit card is too high. You're much, much better off with a micro loan than you are a credit card. But every business should have a credit card for monthly expenses, a business, not your personal one, a business credit card. Or the fourth class is the funding class, which goes in great detail about how to get loans and what's required and everything. So let's talk about a little bit about the startup. First of all, and this is kind of crazy. There's a lot of things we kind of try to put them in some order and everything, but there's things you got to come up with. That once you have done your business plan and you are sure that you do you kind of divide the work into not spending money yet, just time and effort. And over here now I'm spending money. Make sure you're going to do this. Get your business plan together and look at the financial part and go, if I do this well, if I've done my financial part correctly, I can make money doing this business. Now that you know that, you can start spending money. So one of the things that you've got to do is you've got to decide on your name. What's the name of your LLC or your S Corp? And you're going to, or the name that you're going to have on your food truck can be different. You can have your LLC and the name of your food truck. It can be Lois's ice cream stand, but her deal could have been Lois Restaurant Corporation LLC, and you would have a fictitious name. So they can be different. But you want to, once you have the name, and I always believe in having 2 or 3 names in a row. This is my number 1 choice, my number 2 choice, and number 3 choice. Because think of social media. You want to have your name and you want to capture your social media name at the same time, your registration. So once you get your name, register it with Sunbiz, get your fictitious name, secure your domain name is what I'm talking about. I'm sorry. You want to have your domain name. Now, when you go into search for domain names, there are other people watching what you search for. And if you don't take that name, they'll take it because it's not expensive. And then when you come back for it, they want to sell it back to you. Little known secret, or maybe everybody knows, and I just didn't. I think, don't hold me to the numbers exactly. Tesla was already taken when Musk wanted that name, and he paid $75,000 for the name Tesla. Somebody else already had it, sold it to him. So again, if you have that name and that's what you're going to use, and you go onto the domain website like GoDaddy, and it's open, grab it, because somebody else will come along behind you. That way, you've got a consistent thread between people seeing your name and then just Googling it. And if your corporate name is not your exact name, that then your truck, then you're using a fictitious name, you have to register that, which is easy to do. And you have to register a fictitious name in the county you're doing business in. So you decide on a name, you register it in Florida, you get your fictitious name, you get your domain name, you set up, you've got to have the name in order to set up your legal form of business, because that's on your LLC or S corp. You can do a sole proprietor, partnership, LLC, S corp, or C corp. I would tell you, I shy, whenever you're dealing with food, I shy away from a proprietor, sole proprietor, or partnership, because you're serving food, and America is a great country. Anybody can sue anybody for any reason at any time. And we are the most litigious society in the world. So the LLC or the S corp give you some limited liability protection from lawsuits and everything. So as you get going, and when you deal with a counselor or a mentor to help you, you may want to have that discussion. Or if you have an accountant, you'd want to talk to them about it. But I'm a big believer in the protection. And then there are also some tax advantages. Then you get your EIN number, which is your employer identification number. It is your business's social security number. And you can go to irs.gov. That's easy to get also. After you've got everything, you go to the bank. You'll need your corporate papers. You'll need your fictitious name. You'll need your EIN. You go to the bank and you open up your checking account in your business's name, and then you open your credit card in the business's name. Now, sometimes it's hard to get a business credit card. They don't want to give them out, especially if you haven't been in business before. So what you ask for is a secured credit card. What that means is you put up money to secure it, and that becomes your limit. So let's say, I use even numbers because I look smarter that way. Let's say you go in and apply, and they say, we'll do a secured credit card. You put up $1,000 limit, and then that's your limit. You can charge up to $1,000. So you just sort of constantly making payments on that to keep it under. And that's your monthly credit card that you buy things with, which helps separate your personal bills from your business. You always want to separate all personal expenses from business expenses. Usually after a year, if you've handled your bank account and your credit card correctly, then they'll take away they give you your money back, and then you can ask to increase your limit if you want. But it's called a secured credit card. Talk to your bank when you go in there. We highly recommend, although we work with larger banks and they support us, we also recommend going into regional banks that are deal more with smaller businesses. A lot of times, some of your bigger banks have more rigid guidelines than small regional banks do. And then we cover this in a little bit more depth in the first class of starting your new business. Okay, let's talk about truck and equipment. Consider buying used or short-term rental. We talked a little bit about that. Trucks or trailers. All of this can be modified. And one of the things you start to think about, and you got to remember, you're doing a lot of stuff at the same time. So think about when you're going to consider the difference between buying new or used is how much money do you have and how long do you really plan on doing this. Remember, if you buy and put in $150,000 into this unbelievable decked out truck or trailer, and you do it for 10 years, in your exit strategy, you never start a business without an exit strategy. If your exit strategy is to sell it in 10 years, what's it worth? Remember earlier in the deal, I told you that used restaurant equipment goes for 20 to 30 cents on the dollar. You don't have something that's worth a lot. So go in and look at used. One of the things to consider about a trailer over a truck, said again, when the truck breaks down, if you're buying a used food truck, How many miles? How old is it? What is the service on it? What will it take to maintain it on a regular basis? As opposed to what's it take to maintain your F-150 or your Dodge Ram truck to pull it? These are all things kind of you've got to weigh out in your mind. But we've got some examples here of, you're from a food cart to a loaded concession trailer, 8 by 20 for 16, another one for 17. You can go online and there's pages of used trucks and trailers to take a look at. Now, remember, one of the things to think about, you've done your business plan and you've kind of thought about different options. One of the things to think about is what style of food are you going to cook? What equipment do you need to cook it in? I'll give you an example. Are you going to have a grill or a griddle in your food truck or trailer? Well, what can you cook on a griddle that you can't cook on a grill, or vice versa? So I can cook a burger on either. I can cook chicken on either. I can cook a lot of products. It's hard to melt butter on a grill and then put a bun on top of it. So you have to butter the bun and then put it on the grill. And then you've got lines where you can just put some butter down and put the bun down and get that if you want. How do you cook a pancake or a waffle? You'd have a waffle iron. How do you cook a pancake or a Philly cheesesteak on a grill? Hard to do. You can cook about almost anything on a griddle. So that's, you think about, and how many items on my menu are going to be on that? So how big do I need? So you take some graph paper and you kind of start drawing out yourself, what equipment are you going to need and where are you going to put it? You're more than likely going to need a blodgett oven. You're going to need a griddle. You're going to need a fryer. You're going to need at least a 2-burner. You may need a toaster, depending on the buns, how you're going to do that. You're definitely going to need refrigeration, freezer and cooler. So think about that. You need a place for a sink as you lay this out and everything, and the equipment you're going to need. So if you buy a used trailer or truck, what equipment does it have in it? Get one that gives you the flexibility. I thought this product would be good, but I'm going to this product over here. But now, I want to pick up, wok. You wouldn't have a wok unless you were really into the Asian part of the food. But think through match your menu and your flexibility with changing options or running specials with the equipment you're going to have in your truck or trailer. Especially if you're buying new, you can go through the same process and then lay it all out and they'll build it that way for you. If you're going to buy used, it's pretty much got to have it, because then discarding equipment, putting something in gets expensive. Truck and equipment, used restaurant equipment is typically priced 20 to 30%. Here's some restaurant equipment world, some places you can go online and look at the equipment and price it out. When you go talk you're doing your due diligence, you're at the food park or the food truck park or the bazaar rally that's going on, talk to people and ask them what their recommendation on equipment is. That's just touching the tip of the equipment. But I got to tell you, remember to be flexible and match up your menu with the equipment you're going to need. Quick thing on licenses. And this is a quick brush over, because again, every city and every county is slightly different. The state's the same, but cities and counties are different. So for example, you're going to submit a food establishment inspection application to the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. You're going to have to include a drawing of your, a detailed drawing of your truck or trailer. And that's where everything is. So where's the refrigeration? Where's the hand sinks? Where's the fire extinguisher going? All the things, just like you, if you've been in the restaurant business, they come in and inspect it, your hoods, you're gonna have to have a detailed drawing of all of it. If using a common, if using 99% of you're going to, if using a commissary, obtain a letter of agreement with them and be sure their inspections are up to date. So when you apply for your inspection, they know which commissary that you're gonna be prepping the food in, that you're not, the problem with prepping it in the truck is you usually just don't have enough space to do it. DBPR will do your final inspection usually at the commissary. So you set up an appointment. That way they come out, they do your whole deal, they look at the space you've got, and the commissary should already have been inspected. They're inspected by the health department on an ongoing basis. Things to also consider under license and permits is the size of your truck, and are you going to need a commercial driver's license? So you're gonna have to kind of look at what you got. A lot of times, if you have hydraulic brakes, that's almost a foregone conclusion. Sometimes it goes by the size, the length, sometimes by the weight. So contact the Department of Florida Department of Highway Safety. Motor vehicle, there is the website, and make sure of are you gonna need a CDL license? Again, if you've got a Ford pickup truck, and I don't have stock in Ford. If you have a Ram Ford pickup truck, you won't need a commercial driver's license. You're also gonna have to do a fire inspection. If you've got hoods, you know, if you're doing an ice cream deal or a smoothie type deal and you're not cooking anything, you don't need hoods. If you're cooking, you're gonna need hoods. So if you've got hoods, you're gonna need a fire suppressant system inside the hoods. You're gonna have to have your food handler's permit. And if you're doing a food truck, something to remember, you're the owner of the food truck, but you have somebody working with you full-time, let's say. And so they're gonna meet you with the truck at the site. They're gonna set it up that you're doing the rally at. And they get there early and they're setting things up and you don't get there for another hour. If a health inspector comes by, they have to have their food handler's license. So there always has to be at least one person in the truck or at the truck that has their food handler's card. You're gonna have to obtain a business tax receipt from your home county and or city that you're located in. And then clearly check with the county of the event that you're gonna do for any additional licenses or requirements that they're gonna make you do. Consider using, I think we've got it later in here, if you use a booking agency and they've got them in town, then a lot of times they're doing all that for you. They'll tell you what you need to have for what event, and they can also keep, I think, a copy of your records so they make sure you're up to date and everything. Remember, if you've got a license for Orange, Seminole, Sanford, and Maitland, because you do events there, those licenses have to be renewed every year. Commercial kitchens, they were tough to find and hard to get a hold of. I went to the website, thekitchendoor.com / Kitchen Rental in Orlando, and they had several, but I tried calling some and nobody's answering the phone, so you may just have to do it the old-fashioned way, get in your car. I did the same thing for Jacksonville, but only one came up. So you're really gonna have to do the research on where the kitchens are. The gentleman I talked to, anybody's in Lake County, he said LakeCommissaryKitchen.com was a great one to work out of. So you're gonna have to do your own local market research to get that. And then I also highly recommend decide what you're going to need. Do you need prep area? Do you need walk-in space? Do you need freezer space? How much of it? Because you pay by the different services. And are they capable of doing that? Some of them are not big enough to do that. Okay, you're prepared. Either Lois has been answering all the questions as we're going, or I'm going too fast, or I've done a really good job and nobody's got any questions. So I will keep going.
Yeah, keep going. I'm answering a lot on the fly here, and so keep putting your questions in Q&A and keep chatting about what you're doing out there. We've got lots of action going on.
Okay, I will keep going. You're getting ready to open. Okay, preparing to open. Menu development. We've touched on this several times. Again, I cannot tell you how critical it is. And let's remember one thing. You cannot be everything to everybody. So we're going to serve that. Again, the gentleman I was talking to, very successful food truck, very successful. He's got it. It's a stationary one, and he's got a great setup. You know, he took off. He had gyros. He basically is burgers and Philly cheese, chicken, that kind of deal. But he had on there gyros, and he was selling the heck out of his gyros. The problem is, and it was a good return to net on the gyros. He was making money on them. But the problem is, if you had the wrap, you had a different product, you had a different dressing that went on, a different protein and a different dressing. Those were 3 different items that he only used for one thing. So as again, if you're going to do a chicken sandwich, a burger, and a fish sandwich, you put it all in the same bun. So you have one bun. How many different dressings are you going to bring in for them? So you have got more than ever, especially if you all that have been in restaurants, you're trying to figure out where you're going to put things in a food truck. I mean, when I went in the back of his tree, he has a trailer, not a truck. When I went in there, there is not an open space anywhere. Everything is stuck in there. And so he took gyros off his menu because he needed more space. I talked to him about, you don't have any potato chips. He goes, I have French fries. He goes, think how much room, and they're frozen, how much room frozen fries take up. Where would I put all the potato chip bags? He goes, people, they don't get the option of having it, but they love the French fries. So again, when you're developing your menu, think about space and how many products. And the other is, and he came, he loves, what was it? He talked about the food trucks that sell the lobster sandwiches, you know, the lobster salad on a bun. He goes, it's all cold. All they do is they got it set out. They have the lobster roll. They have the bun. You put the ingredients in the middle, you hand it to them. You put it in a basket, you give it to them. Lobster rolls. He goes, it's lobster. You charge a lot of money for it. You don't need a lot of products. It's a great thing. So think about the steps of preparing something. So you come up with a menu item. Where are all the ingredients I need? Where am I going to put them all? How much prep is involved? How much labor is involved in it? And there's no labor in his lobster roll. You put together the lobster and the filling, and that's it. So, and how am I going to present it? What's the presentation? How many things can I get in one disposable container? What size to give to the guest? What equipment is going to be needed, and is it versatile? That's the griddle as opposed to the grill. How many items can I cook? If I want to change my menu, if I want to add a special, do I have the equipment to do it? Simple number of items. Keep it simple. Consider space utilization, sales projection for the day and event. This is something I had not thought about. You should think about it. If you're going to do a food truck and you're going to an event and you load your truck up for that event and you sell everything you had to sell, you sold out, everything's gone. How much money did you do that day? So if in other words, let's say you're selling bagels at a food truck, you're not charging much, and you sell them all and you walk away with $400, then you take out your cost of goods sold, your food costs and everything, take out your labor costs. Remember, back at the commissary, and this, take out all your operating expenses, take out your overhead, and you know the principal and everything. Did you make any money? You walk away with 20 bucks. Is that worth doing it? If you're the guy selling lobster rolls and you sell out and you're selling lobster rolls for $15, $20 a lobster roll or an order, how much money did you walk with that day? So you've got to make sure that the menu you're putting together, you don't want to be the most expensive person on the block. You don't want to be the cheapest, so you can't make money on it. So you gotta figure out the deal and what you're going to charge. Going back to doing the demographic study, when you're looking at your competition and you've got their menus, so you can figure out what most people are ordering on the average, how much they're charging for it, how many people went through, you extrapolate out how much sales did they do. So you begin, some of it's working into it backwards. Don't put yourself in a position where either I cannot, my operation is so small, I can't sell a lot of things, or what I'm selling doesn't generate a lot of revenue and I've got overhead. Again, you look at the hot dog cart. Well, the capital dollars to get into it are not great, not a lot. You buy the hot dog cart. You got buns, hot dogs, ketchup, mustard, relish, and a container. What else do you have? So again, your overhead's low. Can you bring enough of those to make enough money for that day? And your labor is you, the one person. So again, you gotta back into this and make sure that what you're gonna do, there's a phrase out there we've talked about, is just buying yourself a job. You do all this work, you get it all together, you go out there, you do it every day, you make it an income of $50,000 a year, you bought yourself a job. Now, you can put together the value of, is that enough? Does that work? Does that keep me happy? Then do it. If it's not, then figure out how to get it to where, how much money do you want to make off this, and engineer it backwards so what you're selling, where you're going, how you're doing it, you can actually make good money off of this food truck. It's got to be, again, cost effective, cost of goods per item, per plate. So many people come to me in the food business and I ask them what their food cost is and they don't know, or I ask them what their plate cost is and they don't know. You've got to know that. Food cost, cost of goods sold, food goods is the number one cost on your P&L usually. And in brick and mortar, it's always. Your food cost is always the number one expense. So every time I add an item onto the menu, I know exactly how much it's going to cost me to put, if it's made by recipe, nobody asks, add this, take that away. Nobody modifies the order. If they order exactly as it is on the menu, I know exactly to the penny how much it costs me to put that out. Even if I had to make a batch of an ingredient with, let's say the batch of whatever I've got, let's say you make your own relish for hot dogs and you make a batch of it. I've got that batch priced out by ingredient, cost me X, and I should get, if I'm using a certain size scoop, I should get a certain number per hot dog, or a certain number of hot dogs per batch. So the cost for that hot dog is X. So you've got to know that. And that helps you on the next category of pricing. You kind of got to back into pricing different ways. One is your food costs. So it costs me, I want a 25% food cost. It costs me $2.50 to make it. I sell it for $10. That's a 25% food cost. That's one way to back in. But the other way is you got to know what your competitors are selling it for. So if you're selling a hot dog for $10 and they're selling it for $7.50, why am I going to buy your hot dog? I mean, it better be a really, really, really spectacular hot dog to get me to pay more money for it like that. So that's back to that deal where you're sitting in the food court or the food truck rally, and you're watching what everybody's selling, and then you get their menus, you know exactly what they're charging for it. So you can be competitively priced. And then what is your pricing strategy? I never wanted to be the cheapest. I don't want to be the most expensive, but I'm not going to underprice everybody where I'm leaving money on the table that they're not. again, and I'll use that example, it's a little bit easier because food is always a little bit different. In the full service casual dining, liquor, beer, wine, Jack Daniels and Coke. Okay, 99% of everybody takes a 9-ounce rock glass, fills it with ice, 1.25 ounces of Jack Daniels, a shot of Coke, and serves it. 99% of the time, it's the exact same ingredients. So if I'm charging $6 and somebody else, all my competition is charging $7, I'm leaving $1 on the table. Why not charge, if they're charging $7, why not charge $6.75 if you want to be on? If they're charging $7, I don't want to be $8 because Jack Daniels and Coke is Jack Daniels and Coke. So think about that as you're watching your competitors, what they're doing and what they're charging. And remember this point of differentiation. Why are they going to buy from me instead of somebody else? Operations, again, you've now got your menu. You've got literally a menu with a recipe down to every single ingredient, whether it's individual or batch made. You've got a menu, a recipe for everything. And take the time to write that recipe in such a way that every new employee you ever bring in could read that recipe and pretty much follow it. So you have the ingredients and then you have the methodology of putting it together. So it's a lot easier to train them quickly if you do that. Then think about sourcing of your food products. You've got Restaurant Depot, you've got Sam's, you've got Costco, you've got BJ's. If you start to get larger or you have a stationary position, let's say you do a food truck court where you literally rent the space and you leave your truck there, well, you could think Quantum Distributors is kind of like a smaller boutique distributor and they'll deliver to you. US Food, Cisco, PFG. Think about if you can get food, if you're in a food truck park and they've got a commissary you can work out of and you can have food delivered to you. Think about the time that saves for you going and picking up the food, going to the commissary to prepare it, to put it on the truck, to drive to the rally, to reverse everything, to close everything down. So these are some of the companies you can pick from. How are you going to do the food prep? Not out of your house. It does not meet food standard health department. Even if you're in the cottage industry and you're preparing food out of your house to sell at farmers markets and stuff like that, there's a whole list of regulations. You can go on the Department of Agriculture website on that one to get on what you can use and can't use. And it comes down to holding food correctly and handling it so it's not in the danger zone longer than it needs to be. Really comes down to the ingredients and refrigeration. And then you have to have everything labeled. So you cannot do it out of your house. You're gonna, unless you're very small in number of items, a snow cone deal you can do out of your own truck. But usually you're gonna have a commercial kitchen, which we've talked about. And if you do it on your truck, you got to remember health standards and sanitation and how you're handling and holding food. And if you do it on your truck and you've got to hold food refrigerated, that means you've got to go back somewhere and either plug it in if you have a generator or keep the thing running, the truck running to keep your refrigeration. That'll cost you a fortune. You're more than likely trying to find a commissary and trying to do one that is close to your house. Point of sale equipment. The cigar box theory of point of sale is not a good one. That is, you got a little box there, all the money that comes in goes in the box. That money goes in a bigger box till the end of the month. All the money that you take out of the box to pay bills. And at the end of the month, if you have any money left in the box, you made money. Terrible strategy. One, and it's not, it may be later, or if it's not here, I'll go through it now, is consider how you're going to keep your books. QuickBooks is a program that is great to use. You can do inventories on it. You can keep your bank account. You can keep your profit and loss statement on it. You can keep a lot of things on it. So think about how you're going to do that. But you also want to have a point of sale at the window where you're ringing things up that you can ring it in. And if you've got you can do it, remember production, you're putting throughput, you're putting people through, you want to do it quickly. If you're writing out every ticket and then you're handing it down, how quick can you do it? If you ring it into your point of sale, hit enter and it pops up at the printer if you have one or two places, then it's quicker. And you want to be able to generate a product mix. So whatever point of sale equipment, it's got to have the software so you can generate a product mix for what you're serving. That becomes critical in your ordering and everything, so you know what your par levels are to build to. And then so you got it right there at the window of whoever's taking the orders, and it's quicker once they learn the front of the deal where everything is. And then I would also, depending on how busy you are, consider a handheld. You don't want people waiting a long time in the line. So you've got somebody out there taking orders on a little handheld deal. Again, the gentleman I met with, he can pull it up on his phone. So, they've got a line of people. They've got a handheld for one person. They take another person on a phone and go in and start putting orders in. Remember, that can vary the kitchen because it's all timing too. But consider does the software, maybe you don't pay for it up front, but does the product and the software you have, can you attach a handheld to it and be able to ring things up for people? And also you can have that handheld expedites for speed. So you've got people's order and they're not waiting too long. And then think about coordinating your speed of service. This gentleman, you get in line, you go and place your order. He's got a pavilion there that's covered. So he's got picnic tables in there so they can sit down. They have a microphone. They call out the person's name. They come up. He's got an 8-minute cook time. That's his goal. Every ticket comes in, it's gone in 8 minutes. So that goes back to how you set your trailer or your truck up. Everything's within just you. People are kind of stationary and they can reach it. If you have to take more than 2 steps, that's a mistake. And so the speed of service, can you get the product out? Think about if let's say you're doing a food truck and it's at the office building and they're letting you do your food truck out front. And you've worked your tail off. You've got a good looking truck, you've got great products, but it takes so much time. And people are eating lunch from about 11:45 to 1:15. Then your game is how many people can I put through? Then they trickle before that and they trickle after it. But if you can't get the main rush through, then you're going to cost yourself money. So again, speed of service comes down to how many items you're generating, how many menu items do you have to do, how many, what equipment you're using, and how well do you have it stored for to be able to do that. Human resource, no questions on operations?
Nothing yet. Keep going.
Everybody's still awake. Please don't fall asleep on me out there. Human resource, you're going to be hiring people. And especially if you're in the restaurant business right now, you know exactly how difficult that is. Choosing the right people is critical. You're hiring for their personality, you're hiring for the skills and training. Let me tell you, in a food truck or a trailer, more than a regular kitchen, you're in close proximity. If people don't get along with each other, that's a problem. And keeping it simple, going back to the recipes and how you're going to train them. You need, again, it's hard to put a lot of people back there. You got, let's say you have 2 normal places and you're trying to train 2 people, 4 people may not fit in the back of your trailer. So, you've got to hire people with skills coming into it because they've got to be able to handle everything. They got to be cross-trained on every item. And they've got to get along well together. Consider using a payroll system or a payroll processor. There's a plethora of them out there. that you can use unless you're good at processing your own payroll. The nasty little deal, collect and pay all your taxes. There's just no way to get around paying taxes in the federal government. So collect the taxes for payroll and pay them. FICA, Social Security, all of it's got to be done. Where do you find people? $64,000 question right now. I know a lot of people are on Indeed. There's what's it called? BOH/FOH, back of the house/front of the house. There's a website for that. You probably won't get many people on LinkedIn. That's usually more of a professional group that's not working in kitchens and that kind of deal. But or you go back. Hopefully, you've worked in other restaurants. Go back to friends, people you know. Do they know of anybody that's looking for a job? But I would tell you, everything I'm involved with a restaurant company right now. Everything you hear on the news is true. It is incredibly difficult to hire people. But let me change it and challenge you on one thing. When I go into one of my restaurants and they're complaining about staffing, they're short-staffed and we can't get people. We set up interviews, they don't show up, all of this stuff, you've all heard it. I ask them one question: if you had 10% of the people that left last year, if just 10% of them were still working for you, would you need to hire anybody? And usually the answer is no. So again, the secret to it is once you've hired them, don't lose them. Remember, you have a responsibility. You're creating a culture that goes with your food truck, and you want to be the place of choice, the business of choice where they want to work, not the business of last resort. I used to say restaurant of choice or the food truck of choice, not the food truck of last resort to work for. So remember, people quit people. They don't quit companies. So once you get them and you like them, treat them like gold, because in today's market, they pretty much are gold.
Jack, we've gotten a flurry of questions, so let's pause here before we go into the next section. When you ask if people are awake, they're like, yeah, we're awake. This is just really good information.
Hopefully I'm not going too fast. It's a lot to cover.
Yeah, you're doing good. There's just so much information. Let's stay on HR right now. How do you question or background check a potential employee to try and ensure they're not going to steal from you? They're being reliable.
You can do background checks. You have to sign up with, again, you get your payroll company. They can do the background checks. This, again, I use this example in restaurants where obviously there's more employees than there are in food trucks. But I tell managers, if you believe that there is nobody stealing from you right now, you're naive. If you believe everybody is stealing from you, you're jaded. You don't want to be naive. You don't want to be jaded. And locked doors or safes or offices keep honest people honest. So you want to create systems that there's a check and balance. But you can do a background check. I don't know that that's really, that'll give you a criminal background. I won't tell you whether or not they were stealing from the other restaurant. And usually if somebody's stealing from a restaurant, they don't get prosecuted for it. They just get fired and they just want them out of the building quickly. But you can do background checks on people. The ones whenever I've done background checks, and our company does them, we do it more for the safety of other employees. I don't want to hire a convicted felon with I'm going brain dead here on personal crimes. And a violent offender, been a violent criminal, then I don't want to put my other employees in that position, not tell them the person is a violent criminal offender, but I just won't hire them. But you can do your payroll processing you can have people do that, run background. You set up, cut a deal and run a background check on everybody. Remember this, here's the deal on human resource. If you don't want to get sued, remember, we're a very litigious society. What you do for one, you do for all. So if you check reference on one person, you have to check references on everybody. Otherwise, you discriminated against the one person you check references on. If you do a background check on one, you must do a background check on everybody. So you've got your truck up and running, and Tommy used to work for you at this other restaurant, worked with you for years. You know him, he's a good guy, you hire him and you don't do a background check. But Susie comes in and applies for a job, seems to be a good candidate, worked in another restaurant company, but you do a background check on her. You have discriminated against Susie. So what you do for one, you do for all. So if you're going to start the process of background checks, once you start it, you do it for everybody. Otherwise, you're discriminating. The other thing to remember is documentation, documentation, documentation. So every time I let somebody go and I had documentation and they went to an unemployment hearing, this was before COVID, they went to an unemployment hearing. If I had documentation, they did not get unemployment. If I didn't have documentation, they got unemployment every time. Unemployment's expensive. You get unemployment insurance, which is rated by the number of claims you have. More claims you have, more unemployment insurance you pay. So you want to keep those claims down, same as your workers' comp insurance. You want to keep that down. The more, most of you, I'm guessing, have a restaurant background. Every time somebody picks up a knife, they feel compelled to cut themselves. So you want to work on keeping that low. But those two deals, what you do for one, you do for all, and document everything. Any other questions, Lois?
Yeah, Dick, could you comment on hiring independent contractors versus employees?
That is a good way to do it. But you got to remember some things about it. And I say it's a good way and it's a hard way. Let's say you're going to do an event and you need 5 people. So you try to get the independent contractors, but you got to remember, they've got to give you give them a bid, say, I will pay you X dollars. You don't pay them by hour, you pay them by the job. And they give you a bill at the end of the deal. So the problem is people want to do so much of the food truck. You've got employees working for you. And when you do an employee, you don't pay the value of 1099 or independent contractor is they pay their own Social Security, workers' comp, insurance, all of that they pay. And it should be figured into their bid when they give you a price. Restaurant industry is notorious for using cleaning companies to clean their restaurants, and those are independent contractors. They bid out the job, they do it in the middle of the night, they give you a bill every month. This is the deal, they would have to say, I'll come do this event for you for $100 today, and at the end of the deal, I'll give you a receipt, you give me $100. I don't have to wear your uniform, but I do have to follow your recipes. It's kind of it's a close one. That's a close call. If they're an employee, the IRS will come. If you treat them like an employee, the IRS will come back and make you pay the taxes. The other thing you want to do is get them to fill out, if you're going to use them periodically. A gentleman I knew was a photographer and would hire extra photography. Let's say he was going on a wedding shoot and they wanted 3 photographers instead of him and his wife. He would hire an independent contractor for that day. They would do the shoot. They'd give him a bill. He would pay him. So he got them, and he would use the same independent contractors over and over again every time he had a big job. You can do the same thing, but get them to fill out a 1099. So at the end of the year, when you put in your expenses, you turn in a 1099 to the government, and that becomes an operating expense for your taxes, a business expense for your taxes. I would say it'd be a tough one to manage. I don't know if that helped them or not.
Yeah, and last one in this venue, comment on dividing tips between owners and employees.
Owners and employees. I think I can give you what I think. I am not, I do have a pre-law degree from college, but I never went to law school. So I am not an attorney, and you should probably, there is a group that we use, the Community Development Legal Fund or legal group, which donates time to help entrepreneurs when they're starting their business. Tips, it's my understanding that if the tip is written into the menu, it's the property of the house, and how they divide it is up to them. If the tip is random, you've got a tip jar or something like that, or it's going on under the tip line on the bill, it's the property of the employees. And then they can decide, as long as they're making over minimum wage, they can decide how those tips are going to be divided. So, if you're going to have your employees, you've got a decision to make. You really don't. Kitchen people, as my understanding, cannot be paid on a tipped wage. Only servers, hosts, bussers, and bartenders can be paid a tipped wage. So the tips coming in, you could divide it up, I think, any way you want. I think what's going to be sketchy is if you take any of the tips as an owner. I think you could be in trouble there.
Yeah.
If it were me, I would let the employees decide, or I would just say, okay, we had 3 people working today. One worked 3 hours, one worked, or let's say there were 10 hours, one worked 30%, one worked 30%, and one worked 40%. Then one gets 30% of the tip, the other one gets 30% of the tips, and the other one gets 40% of the tips. Somehow to divide it up evenly and fairly so nobody could come back at you.
Good.
Showing favoritism for how, God forbid, you end up dating one of the employees and they get more tips than anybody else. You'd probably get sued for that one.
Yeah. And there's a lot of questions on locations, the best locations. What do you pay to, where do you have to pay to be? Let's save that to the marketing section because I'm going to go through a lot on locations there.
Okay.
So let's go on to financials there.
Okay. Financial records. We talked about opening a personal, I'm sorry, we've talked about separate your personal from your business. I mean, separate every dime. So you're pulling your trailer, you pull into the gas station, you go to fill up your truck, you use your business credit card, you decide that you're hungry, you want to get in, you're at a Wawa, and you want to go in and get a sandwich for your lunch, that's personal. You want chewing gum, that's personal. You want a Dr. Pepper for caffeine, that's personal. So you do that on your personal credit card. So completely separate your business from your personal. We talked about opening a checking account. I would use a regional community bank, use a separate credit card. But remember, like I said earlier, the problem with the business credit card is you do not have the same theft or fraud protection that you do on your personal credit card. So if somebody steals your personal credit card number, you call the bank, cancel the card, you're not responsible for any of it. On a business, you are. So you want to hold on. You don't want to give that thing away to all your employees and stuff. Go by, run to Publix, buy this, here's my credit card. You want to hold on to that. Record expenses we've talked about. I'm sorry, let me go back. We'll get to insurance in a second. You can consider having insurance for theft on that. Record expenses. QuickBooks is a great tool. So is Sage 50 Cloud. It was formerly Peachtree. Microsoft Money. They're all software, but they're all great ways to track your expenses, do your inventories, do your ordering, do your profit and loss, do your banking. I go back to the credit card or back really credit card or checking. There is absolutely no reason for anybody not to know, especially a food truck, not to know their cash position every day. So I said, I can go in and pull up on my phone, my bank account, both for my personal and my business, and see exactly how much cash I have in the bank today. Now, on one of these software, you can have accounts receivable and accounts payable. You won't have a lot of accounts receivable because when you sell a burger, they give you the money. But accounts payable, you may be on net 30. So you're ordering from Cisco and your order comes in, you've got so many days. So you may have a cash of $1,000 with an order of $500. So you just gotta, you can put in every day what your accounts payable are. So you'll know where your money is and it'll give you a cash position. Number one reason for failure, number one reason restaurants, food trucks, most any business goes out of business is they run out of money, lack of cash. That's simple. Cash, if you have a cash disbursement policy, petty cash, almost all restaurants or food trucks are going to have that. You need to have a petty cash policy. My recommendation is real simple. If you give somebody $20, they come back to you with a receipt, and any change on the receipt, you mark down where it was, what items they got, and how much it costs, and you keep that in order for your accountant because that's a business expense and also needs to be figured in when doing your food costs. So you need to have a policy, and you balance petty cash every day. So if you have $100 in petty cash every day, you balance to make sure you have cash or receipts equaling $100. Selective work with a business accountant, I highly recommend that. To be honest with you, depending on your size and the detail of it, you may not need a CPA, just a good accountant. But I really, unless your business, you're really good with taxes and accounting, I recommend work on what you're good at. You're good at building the business out, trying to find places to market or ways to market your product. Let somebody who's good at accounting do the work. But the more you keep it organized, when you turn it in for your taxes and everything, the less money they're going to charge you. That's why a business credit card is real good. You get your monthly payout. You still need receipts, but at the end of the month, you can take and pull off what your monthly expenses were, and then have the receipts for everything behind it in chronological order, all marked: supplies, food, travel, whatever. And then we have, again, take scores. We have the financial planning. That's the business part, doing your business plan. And then we also teach a class on QuickBooks, which again, I highly recommend you have at least one of them. We don't teach Sage 50 Cloud or Microsoft, but we do teach QuickBooks. And with that, one of the things we try to get you to do in SCORE is do what successful businesses do. A lot of mom and pop entrepreneurs don't want to do the administrative part of the business. Do what successful businesses do. They know where their expenses are. They know what their food cost is. They know what they're paying for a pound of butter. When that produce or dairy or food order comes in, they know what they're paying and they check it every single day. Know where your expenses are. Everybody think, let me go back to, there was a slide earlier, there's so much more than just cooking. How many, we've all heard it, we've all seen it. How many great chefs have gone out of business because they were lousy business people? They may have been great chefs, but they were terrible business people. So you got to be good at both. Federal taxes, you're an S Corp, an LLC, you're going to pay in the state of Florida, and federally, you're going to pay your taxes, probably going to pay them quarterly. All I know is how to put my things together and take them to my accountant that does all of my taxes. And even if I have more time to do it, I don't like it, so I don't do it. I have them do it. Federal unemployment tax, And then your federal employee identification number, we've talked about that. You've got to have that, and you do not want to work off of your social security number. Get your EIN. And there's the website where you go to get it. If you have questions about taxes, I got to tell you, the IRS does not want you to go out of business. They want you in business, making money, paying taxes. So if you have a problem, be proactive. Call them, talk to them. What about this? If you don't have an accountant, you can always call them. Being proactive is a lot better than them knocking on your door saying, you owe us this kind of money. Then they're not very nice. When you're proactive, they're very helpful. They want you to be in business. State tax, again, we don't have a personal income tax, but we do have a state tax in the state of Florida, corporations only. We have a sales tax. Remember, if you collect sales tax, that money is not yours. It goes on a separate line of your books. It's the state's money, not your money. We've talked about Florida unemployment tax, and you can check and see what you need to pay, where you need to charge and everything at myflorida.com, or you can rely on your account. But do not get mixed up or behind with taxes. It's not a good place to be with either state, local, not a good deal. Insurance, gotta have it. No two ways about it. These are some of the insurance that you pretty much have to have. You're gonna need a general liability, third-party lawsuit for bodily injury or property damage. So if somebody, let's say somebody trips over part of your parking, your trailer, you've got a cord or something like that, you're gonna have to have liability insurance if the person gets hurt. What we recommend, I kind of skipped over this line. You want to use an independent commercial insurance agent or broker. You do not want the person that wrote your homeowners or your automobile or your tenant insurance, your personal insurance. You don't want that person. I'm sure they're very good at what they're doing. This is a commercial independent. That means independent means they write for several companies. They don't write, they may write for Liberty Mutual, Hartford, Blue Cross, not Blue Cross, that's health insurance, State Farm, Farmers. They'll write for different, so they can bid. You can break this insurance up into different categories and place it with different companies as long as you bid it equally in the same coverage. So you're gonna need general, so you go to the independent broker, he'll explain, and by the way, you don't pay the insurance, you do pay him, but you don't pay him directly. His commission is paid by the insurance company, which is already figured into your policy. So if you don't use a broker, you're still gonna pay that policy amount. Why not use a broker? So general liability covers bodily injury. Property insurance covers loss to your building. If you have a fire in your fryer inside your deal, even if you put it out quickly, you're going to have property damage, and that's your property insurance. Commercial automobile, your truck, or the truck pulling your trailer, it's going to be a commercial policy, not your private policy. Workers' compensation, it's statutory, no fault benefit for injured workers. In a lot of cases, you'd have to check with this. In businesses less than 4 employees, not counting the owner, you don't have to have workers' comp insurance. Some businesses are required because of the hazard. If you're doing scaffolding for high-rise buildings, then one person has that, you're one person, you gotta have workers' comp because the danger is so high. But I'm here to tell you, let's say your independent agent tells you you do not, by law, you do not have to have workers' comp. You've got 2 people working for you. You don't need workers' comp. And one of those people gets hurt, then their medical bills is covered by their insurance, their personal insurance. Who are they going to sue? They're going to come back and sue you, and they're going to win. I highly recommend talking to your agent about the value of having workers' comp. And if you don't have a lot of accidents, it's not real expensive. And then last, you have what's called an umbrella policy, sometimes also referred to as excess insurance. An umbrella policy, and some of you may have this already on your home and auto. Your primary policy is one of these right here. You have what's called limits of liability. Will go up to 100,000 per person, 300,000 per occurrence. But after that 300,000, you've hit your limit. That's your primary policy. Then after that, your umbrella policy kicks in and covers it. And that's usually written in areas of $1, $2, or $3 million. Now, it sounds like that'd be real expensive. It's not, because it is secondary to your primary policy. Very rarely. I've had umbrella coverage 25, 30 years I've been paying for it, never once used it. Now, again, all of this insurance, you hope to God you never have to use. But once you need it, you're glad you have it, once you have to use it. And more than likely, if you have a lender, you're borrowing money for this venture, you're going to have general liability and property and commercial automobile. The bank or the lending institution will make you have it. Also, if you're doing a food truck rally or you go to a food truck park, they're going to make, when you sign an agreement, you're going to have to show a certificate of insurance to be able to do it. They're not going to have you cause a fire. They're going to have something they can go back on. So more than likely, these 5 for sure. 4 for sure, you're going to need the 4. The 5th one I'd recommend, depending on the price of it.
Dick, a quick question. We have our business insurance from our same home insurance, but it is a business policy. So do I really need commercial or a different policy?
That would be a question for your independent broker. The person you got that insurance with, I would sit down and talk to them. I'm not an insurance expert by any stretch, but that's a fair question and one I would talk to my insurance agent about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I will tell you, people bid these with different companies all the time. You do not have to have, there's advantages to having them together, but you don't have to. So as long as you're comparing apples to apples, that company A, you quoted got a quote for the exact same insurance as company B, and B was $100 cheaper, and it's a well-rated company, you may want to go with that. That's why you use an independent broker. They get paid to do that for you. But in the case of you already have business insurance, you would have to, I'm sure, have all this fall underneath that policy, and they're probably going to do a risk assessment and they're going to charge you more. The other thing is, this is not like if you're in the middle of getting this going and everything, you need to contact an insurance agent early. This isn't like getting Geico online or on the phone, and by the time the conversation's done, you've got automobile insurance. This can take a while to get set up. So you need to get on this. Once you start spending money, you're building your truck or you're ready to buy and everything, you need to be contacting and know how you're going to do your insurance. Takes time.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's wrap it up with marketing, which does cover location. We're going to go to the next slide. We're going to talk about the whole picture of marketing. It's not just advertising. This starts in the very beginning with the branding, the look and feel of your vehicle. Where are you going to put your vehicle? We're going to look at some rallies, fixed locations, private events, catering. Your ambiance, how does it feel around your vehicle? The gentleman who so graciously worked with Dick for so long, in fact, an operator said, how did they carve out 3 hours to talk to Dick? Because this is a very fast-paced business. He's a very well-oiled machine is how he could do it. And he had great employees to back him up. But how does it feel around your, sorry, let me turn my, I'm Southern and I talk with my hands. So unless you can see my hands, you might not understand what I'm saying. But how does it feel around your trailer or your truck? Do you have tables there? I've worked with folks who have trailers that bar seats pull out, and 8 or 10 people can just belly up to the bar and sit there and eat. So how does it feel around yours? That's all part of marketing. Advertising, you got to get people to your events. Just because you build it doesn't mean they will come. You've got to advertise, and you've got to plan ahead, deciding where you're going to park. So Dick, let's look at some pictures here on the next slide. On branding, you want your branding to represent what I refer to as the spirit of your product. Look at the bottom right, the Cousins Lobster Maine Lobster. That is one of the huge food truck businesses, and it's expensive to get into. I believe it was about a $300,000 investment to work with these guys. They've got full disclosure on their website. But look what amazing branding that they have. Now, that's a national brand, and there are advantages of being a franchise of a national brand, but it also comes with a cost as well. To the left, look at that Vietnamese street food. Is that not a cool truck? It's got the look and feel of what you would expect with Asian. And then up at the top is more what my husband, who was a Navy sailor many years, they called geedunk trucks, who would just pull up at the end of the pier, and the sailors would go out and get their food off of them. Not a lot of time spent on branding, but they knew where to go get their food. You want any sign that you have to be easy to read. And this comes from 40 years in marketing. Don't get cutesy with your signage and people can't read it. I've recommended so many restaurants and retailers pull a sign down and redo it, and that's expensive because you couldn't read this fancy cursive font that they have, and you want it to be memorable. So when you're driving down the street, there's actually a Cousins Lobster truck about a mile from me that sits in unincorporated Orange County. That's their home. And every time I drive past it, I grin because they're expensive, but my gracious, are they great lobsters. So you want to be memorable in your branding. So next, Dick. So this is one that Dick and I argue back and forth about. It's Dick's favorite as a marketer. I'd like some more opportunities here. This is a pizza truck that starts with your making your crust in the back. It's going through your oven, and it's finally coming out to the window. So it's kind of in this entertainment type of a product where you're following it the whole way. And I'm sure that sign is better than our picture is. As a marketer, I'd like to be screaming that brand. I would imagine when the side piece, the canopy comes down, that's probably branded very well. But always step back and look as a consumer. Do you have the branding you need? Let's go on. Location, and there were quite a bit of chat on location. Lots of things you can do. You can be on the same corner, a fixed location. This is in rural Orange County. It's right off the UCF campus. This guy has been on this corner for years. There happens to be a gas station right beside it. And he's probably struck a deal with that gas station owner to pull in there. That gives folks another reason to stop at this gas station. There was some chat a little bit ago. If you want to select a location, just go negotiate with that owner. That's true to an extent, but still check your city, county governing boards to see that it's okay to do that. When food trucks first started becoming popular here in Orlando, they were popping up on every corner in downtown Orlando. And the city of Orlando came down, and they were causing traffic issues, unsafe traffic issues downtown. And the city came in and said, no, there's only going to be certain spots around town where a food truck can be there. So you want to be sure that you understand what you're up against on this fixed location. It can be a supplement to a business. Maybe there's a large commercial bank facility in your area, and they're fine to have you come there. You just want to be sure that you dot all of your I's so you don't get your food cooked, you pull in, and an official comes in and tells you, you gotta go. The nice thing about this is you can become part of the community. And Dick, I think this is a good example of the one that you visited with on Friday. He's in the same location at Wekiva Springs all the time. That's where his business is. So you can really build a following because folks are coming straight to you because of your location. Next. Food truck rallies. These are really fun, and these are hot things going on. And I did pull more examples for Orlando than some of the other outlying areas. And I'll show you where you can go to look these up. But find out what's happening in Sanford, up where Dick lives. They have food trucks at least once a month in a downtown area. And folks come from a long way to experience the Sanford food trucks. The one down kind of in the center on the street, you see a row of food trucks. Different communities will bring food trucks in. Lake Nona here in the Orlando area, they bring food trucks in, and people come from long distances. Food truck wars. I mean, there's so much going on in this industry that you can follow this on community-based sites, such as on the next Dick. Let's keep going. We're running out of time. This is the newest thing that's happening. In fact, Dick and I have worked with a couple of different clients that want to do food truck parks where you are going to become a, semi-permanent, hopefully permanent fixture at this particular facility. There's one just south of our office with 3 or 4 food trucks that are always there every day. And they become event places. So the folks that own the parks, they typically will sell maybe the beer and wine. They may sell the drinks. They may say all drinks have to be sold through us. So you've got to understand what their demands are to be there. But these are becoming events. I know a lot of millennials that they're doing their Friday and Saturday night dates at these food truck parks. They're really fun to do, and they're popping up all over Central Florida now. Next one. So before we go to start advertising, there's been a lot of chat on how much do you pay? Do you pay to park? Most places you are going to pay to park, even if you're at an event that they just line you up on the street. You're probably going to pay an event charge like you would going to a farmer's market and having a booth or having your trailer there. Food truck parks, you're going to pay a monthly fee. How much? Just depends on where you're going. The question was asked, is it better to go to a fixed location or to different locations? You just have to try these and do the math. If the rent at a pull-up event is a $300 event fee, but if you want to go to a fixed park and it's $1,000, you've got to figure that into your financials, and your numbers will paint the story for you. If you're paying $300, you know what you have to sell to pay that out. If you're paying $1,000 for a day's event, and that's probably on a very high side, you got to sell $2,000, $3,000 more to pay that back. You want to advertise to drive customers to your truck, a truck or trailer. You want to promote your truck and your locations. Self-promotion is huge. Once you get known and once you get a following, you can display a calendar of events on the side of your truck. It doesn't have to be fancy. It could be a computer screen up there with pictures and upcoming events. we'll look at some Eventbrite in a minute. Your social media and your website are critical to the success of your business. And so many operators say, I hate social media. I don't want anything to do with it. That's critical for this business so that folks can find where you are. And then once you're at the event, do anything you can to have a fun atmosphere around your truck trailer, great smells coming out, when you can have lines of people that says, hey, this is a truck everyone likes, and have QR codes. There's a sample there on the slide. On your truck, on your menu, if you've got a video display, have it on there where folks can snap that. It'll take them to your landing page and you can tell them about your product and where you're going next. It's all self-promotion, and this stuff doesn't cost you much money. This is
You
stuff
also
that
on
you
that
do.
QR, you want to ask them to rate their experience. Because the higher your Google rating, the more you pop up for your SEO, your search engine
Yes.
optimizer. Do not be afraid to ask people, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you snap this and go online and give us a rating?
Good.
Yeah, if they've had a lousy experience, they'll give it to them.
Let's go to the next one. Eventbrite is a marketing tool. It's available nationwide. And to me, this is where you go to your potential customers, your outside customers. This is an example that I pulled up, or I did food trucks, Orlando, and all of these different dates come up. You just have to look at your market and see what's there. And it's a great way to advertise where you're going to be, and it's either free or not expensive. It's a great tool. Let's go to the next one, Dick. Your own followers, you want to talk to them through the media that you own. In advertising, we've got this thing called paid media and earned media. Your website, your social media, that's your earned media that you have got folks used to coming to you through your assets, such as your own website. Again, you can tell I like lobster. This is the Cousins Maine Lobster website that is great. Again, a lot of money put behind this on a franchise, but your website is critical, as well as the next one, Dick, and that's your social media. You need to be active in this. You need to hire someone. If you don't want to do it, I'm sorry, I'm overselling lobster. We've got folks that want to go get a lobster roll now, but you need to be active on social media. So when folks are thinking, hey, it's Thursday night, let's go grab something. Where's my favorite food truck? They can go to your Facebook page, your Instagram page, and know exactly where you are. Social media is so critical for small businesses today. We teach dozens of classes. I mean, from very specific on Facebook, LinkedIn, to broad general social media. So look at the calendars and be sure you either keep up with it or you hire someone to keep up with it. Next. There are food truck bookers, agencies, listings. They call themselves different things. I pulled a few examples here. And for your particular market, just ask Mr. Google, food truck brokers, food truck agencies. These folks, for a fee, will get you into various food trucks. It's a good way to get started. And once you establish your identity, you may not need it long term, but to get started, you may need some help. And again, things that we recommend as far as companies, these aren't endorsements from SCORE. These are just some places that we found to give you ideas of things to go look for. So next, Dick. We're at questions. I really buzzed through marketing because there were so many questions for Dick on the operations, which is the critical part to get started. If there are any last questions, we're at 8 o'clock right now. A few people have asked, will there be another food truck webinar in the future? There was so much information. We'll probably schedule another one in a couple of 3 months because we had a huge turnout for this one.
But what I would recommend, Lois, is you can get a hold of SCORE and sign up to get a mentor and have somebody help you with the food truck. I mean, we have people
Absolutely.
from all over the state, and really from Alabama and some in Ohio and stuff like that. Contact your local SCORE office and ask for a mentor, and somebody will help you with this. The problem with food trucks is the regulations, licensing is different by city and counties. So you
And
really,
state.
if you have local help, it goes a long way.
Yeah. Questions being asked by Precious. Is there a seminar event instead of a webinar? Dick and I did a seminar event last fall and we had 8 people there. We've had over 100 on this tonight. So we'll probably for the foreseeable future keep it as a webinar. But again, grab a mentor, and that's where you can delve deep one-on-one. We can't go into each of your individual tracks on one webinar. The link for the presentation is in Bitly right now. Be sure to grab that. Is this all the same philosophy for an ice cream truck? You know, we didn't talk about that specifically, but so much of it will be similar. Dick, I would assume you've got all the licensing restrictions or requirements.
All the licensing,
Yeah.
health inspection, all that. The only difference between an ice cream truck is obviously the prep is light years easier depending on what you're serving. Most of it is scoop and serve are already pre-made. And then, so your use of a commissary may be greatly smaller. And then, you know, you still have the decision on where you are. Do I want to be mobile? Do I want to be stationary? That kind of deal. But the ease of operation, you don't need as many ingredients and storage. You need a lot more refrigeration, but you don't need a grill. You don't need fryers and that kind of deal.
Correct.
Unless you're frying
and
your
you'll
own
be
waffle
more
cone.
mobile. Yeah.
I'm trying to
Other
find
questions?
the link again so I can put it back up there.
Yeah, I just dropped it in again. Be sure that you grab that. I think Jen got it fixed, so you should be able to just grab it now. It's a learning experience for us tonight. Even at our ripe ages, there's always stuff we can learn. So any last questions? We're 5 after, and we're very respectful of your time. But if you have questions, we can hang a few minutes. Well, thanks for the compliments, folks. I hope that you've gotten quite a bit out of this. Our seminars, we do cram so much information. It is drinking from a fire hose, but you've listened to it. You've got the presentation, and then go back in a couple of days and flip through the slides again, and you'll remember comments, particularly that Dick has made on that operations piece. But just let us know how we can help you. But you guys
Thank you very
have
much, everybody. I hope you all have a great evening.
Yes, absolutely. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye, Lois.
Bye, Dick. See you tomorrow.